Have you ever been on a holiday somewhere new? A whole other country that you've never seen before, except for maybe on TV or on Instagram. There's a certain kind of thrill to it, and a good level of anxiety if you're anything like me. What helps me when I'm going to new, unfamiliar places like that is having my partner with me. A person who you love and care for, and who loves and cares for you, and who wants to protect you in the same way you want to protect them, goes a long way when it comes to bringing down that overall anxiety of a completely unknown place. So a vacation on a remote island paradise with them certainly doesn't sound like a bad idea. Quite the opposite, in fact. I think it would be rightly calming for the old nerves. But what if after arriving to this remote, idyllic and distant location, far away from family, friends, known ports of safety from danger, it becomes clear that there are other motives at play. It becomes clear that the person who you thought was safe has far darker intentions for your trip than just relaxing and reconnecting. What happens when the only person you can run to for help is the one intending to cause you harm? This is the premise for Hideout, a Japanese manga written and illustrated by Masasumi Kakizaki and serialized in Shogakukan's weekly Big Comic Spirits, all the way back in 2010. It had a total of 9 chapters, which were then serialized into one creepy little tankobon. The cover's really cool. I'll put it up on screen. It's the kind of thing that if I saw it, I'd definitely want to pick it up. Now, before I get into the weeds with this, I do want to make it clear that this isn't for the faint of heart. There's definitely things like it out there, but I just want to give you a heads up that, as the title of the video implies, there's some disturbing stuff in here. Trigger warning for the subjects and content on screen right now. If any of those bother you, I ask that you do not read this manga, and maybe go and watch another video. In fact, I have plenty. Go check the channel. That having been said, it's 9 chapters long. You'll easily read this in an hour. I did. I read it and then reread it again on my lunch. But if the idea of an isolated and personal horror story surrounding 2 people who are dealing with loss, trauma, and a no longer present quote-unquote love, because these people really don't love each other. The thing that is splayed out here is not love. None of what is shown here is love. Then I suggest you go read it now. Pause the video, go read it, and come back and tell me what messed you up the most, because I will be spoiling pretty much all of it in the video. So go read it, let me know in the comments below what you liked the most and the least, or what part you found freakiest. Because there's some choice panels in this manga. So with the trigger and spoiler warning out of the way, let's get in. So we start off with lines from a manuscript, torn and trodden into the mud, seemingly the last manuscript its author will ever write. It begins to lead us into a flashback, into a story. As we read the lines, we transition over to a man tied in a chair in a grubby, awful, tiny little torture chamber. And we know it's a torture chamber because this man is beaten and bloodied, begging for their life, begging for mercy in this dank cellar room. And his pleas receive no answer. The only indication we get that anyone else is even there are 2 absolutely horrific looking eyes staring through the wooden boards that are blocking the exit to his cell. It's important to note here that everything we see from this point on is through flashbacks. Absolutely everything. Right up until the end of the last chapter. As the author begins to shed some light on how our principal characters ended up here. We see husband and wife, Seichi and Mika Kirishima, relaxing on the beach. A beautiful day, her laying back in the lounger, cool as a cucumber, Seichi standing up, staring longingly out at sea. And it's clear that things are tense between the 2 of them, like even just the way the manga panels are framed and the energy of the page. They should be much happier here, and they're very just at odds with each other. We can tell the air is pretty tense. And it becomes evident that they're here on the island to heal their respective wounds, and to try and make amends over some past trauma. At the moment, unclear what that is. But we do get a hint at what it might be, as it pans and we realize Seichi's not staring out at the ocean. He's staring at a father and his 2 kids playing together on the beach. He mentions hearing about a waterfall from one of the busboys at the hotel they're staying at. A beautiful, bountiful waterfall said by the people of the island to bring happiness and love to any couples who go and witness its waters. And even though Mika isn't impressed, saying, oh, you don't really believe in that, do you? Seichi does. Or at least, Seichi's willing to try anything so that they can start over from zero. We cut to later that night, seeing them driving through a back road of the jungle in the lashing rain, just mud splashing along, a massive change from the beautiful island weather from earlier. And again, we see Mika's not impressed, as it becomes clear to her that apparently Seichi's gotten lost. She immediately starts accosting Seichi, telling him that he's useless, and that he always has been. Obviously pissed off, and definitely not unused to giving Seichi this kind of shit. He just stares straight on. She starts messing with the radio, and he informs her that radio signals do not get this far out. So it seems like they're in the middle of nowhere, lost, and radio, and I'm assuming cell phone signals, can't reach them. That's surely not a bad sign. As that fact becomes clear, Seichi starts telling her about another story that he heard from that busboy. That there was a massive battle on this island years ago, and thousands of soldiers died, their blood soaking the soil, and their bones littering the island. It's as he's talking about this that Miki cuts him off, stating that she should have known. He didn't want here to come and heal any wounds. He was coming here for inspiration for his next cheap novel. He's a novelist. He's an author of apparently cheap schlock. We start to see his facade crack a little bit as he tries to clap back, telling her that he did everything he could, worked as hard as he could for her, that he worked and tried like crazy. But his wife does not relent, telling him that he knows they're only here because of what he did. And finally she drops the bomb. She says that it's his fault, that it's because of him their son died. Oof. And with that, whatever hesitation Seichi had shatters and disappears. His mind finally made up, or his mind finally completely broken, he slowly brings the car to a stop, and when Mika looks at him questioningly, tells her the car has no gas. They're all out of gas. That doesn't look like it's out of gas to me. Thankfully, Seichi lets her know that there's a nearby lighthouse, or a nearby cabin that he saw. The translations have been a little weird about it, but basically he knows of a safe place where they can go to for help. So they have to walk through the lashing rain. He hops out, he grabs them a couple of parkas out the back of the car, as well as a wrench to help fix the car. I don't know why Mika doesn't question him taking the wrench. It seems pretty clear that he's taken a wrench, but I'm sure it'll be fine. Nothing bad will happen, I'm sure it'll be fine. They head nice and deep right into the jungle. She just follows along behind, giving him shit the entire way there, which just, for me, feels like a bad idea even in the best of times. Like, you don't want to piss off anyone you're with when you're heading that deep into unknown territory. You want them fully on side, in case, God forbid, some kind of wild animal attacks, or, you know, they might be getting ready to murder you. Which Seichi is. He turns around and begins to advance on Mika before cracking her in the head and letting her know that once he's done here, he's going to get away and finally start over fresh on his own. And taking advantage of the moment, Mika grabs a rock, smashes him in the head, and takes off running. He lets her know, as he follows along behind her, that even if someone were to end up this deep in the jungle, in this exact spot, and find her body, by the time they do, it should be well decayed. And what's one set of bones amidst the thousands that were left over from this massive battle? He finally finds a cave, having followed her trail right up to the entrance. And it's here where future Seichi, narrating from his manuscript, lets us know that he should have turned and walked away, that he should never have went into that cave. But head in he does, where he finds Mika, wounded on the ground, her leg hurt and unable to escape. She starts to beg for her life, pleading that they can work this out, that we can start fresh, find some new way to start over. But she is cut off as he brings the wrench down for one final fatal swing and takes her out. And finally, in his mind, he's free. He can start over. Alone in the cave, he gloats over his own personal victory. But is he alone? Over his shoulder we see a silhouette. And, sensing someone else's presence, he swings around, pointing his torch at the face of Florida Governor Ron DeSantis? What's he doing here? Well, from here on out, we're going to refer to the esteemed governor as the boy. This creepy child, the boy, calls out for their mama. But I mean, look at him, you know it sounds like mama. Seichi kind of dealing with this creepiness pretty well. He looks around, says, "What are you talking about, kid? I don't see your mama here." But the child is gone when he looks back. The boy has disappeared. He chalks it up to a hallucination, since his entire life since his son died has been a nightmare. But Now he can finally get out of here and start fresh. But he gets lost. He can't seem to find his way out, and it turns out the boy is not the only other person here. This creepy-ass old man is here, shriveled and deformed looking, almost like a corpse on legs. He attacks Seiichi and chases him to the entrance to a bunker at the bottom of the cave. Seiichi jumps in, falls down, gets hurt, but manages to hobble his way through, and he finds a man and a woman prisoner. The woman, apparently the mother of the boy. So it looks like that creepy old man has been keeping people hostage here, and has been doing some absolutely heinous things to the female captives that he manages to find. He then gets the jump on Seiichi, knocks him out and drags him away, and while Seiichi's tied up, he hears the cries of the other male prisoner for a little while until finally they cut off. And it is then clear that he's not going to make it out of this one. The old man is going to kill him, and in all likelihood, eat him. This took a dark turn from just hanging out on the beach at the start of this manga. But in a freak twist, Mika's alive. He did not deal the killing blow. She's okay, and she's in cahoots with the old man. Or she is now. She wasn't from the beginning. That would have been really weird. But she lets Seiichi know that she's going to do whatever she has to keep that old man on her side and eventually find a way to escape. But he is going to die here, and she'll get out, and she'll be the one to start fresh. And he takes exception to that. She heads away and starts to finagle with the outfla when the young boy arrives later on. Seiichi manipulates him by telling him he'll help him find his mama. All he has to do is untie him and let him out. But first, he has to take care of the boy's father. So Seiichi, getting out, grabs a machete and takes the young boy in hand as they go in search of the creepy old man. The creepy old man, however, is currently getting fagoogly with Mika. She's allowing him to get all up on top of her business and do some things. I believe this is called the Hollywood experience. However, she makes a break for it, running, as there is some kind of confrontation between Seiichi and the old man. She ends up trying to make a break for it and almost gets out, cajoling a not-present Seiichi about how she'll be the survivor. She's going to get out. She'll be the one who, oh dear, bayonet through the head. That's not good for the health. The old man, taking exception to the fact she wanted to leave, took her out of business with an old World War II rifle and a bayonet. Then he takes that in hand and goes to find Seiichi for one final fight. And a absolutely horrific fight it is. The art in this is so creepy and disturbing. I don't even know how to deal with it. But after a knockdown, drag-out fight, Seiichi wins. Seiichi manages to kill the old man and begins to head with the boy to find his mother. And it's at this point we're going to take a look at the flashbacks within this flashback that we've been seeing throughout the entire time. We get to see Seiichi as a young and up-and-coming author, successful with a wife who apparently loves him, and the birth of their child, June. We see that his family is used to a certain lifestyle, his wife seemingly a little high maintenance, as she comes back from a school shopping trip with her son, with Chanel and Gucci bags and lots of expensive stuff. So there's some serious cash flow out, just as much as there's cash flow in this household. Except, turns out Seiichi has not been too lucky. After his first few novels, publishers aren't liking what he's selling, and he's slowly but surely running out of money, to the point where he has less than $50 in his bank account. So, to try and make ends meet, he begs, goes to a magazine publisher, gets down on his hands and knees, and begs for a job. And he gets one. It's a step down, but it does let him kind of keep things going until he can figure everything out, and he starts working from home. One day, Mika is heading out to meet up with a couple of her girlfriends to hang out and whatever, and she leaves the balcony door open while she's drying some clothes. Little June is wandering around, just doing like kids do, and she calls out to Seiichi to make sure he takes in the clothes. Get that laundry in, buddy. And she heads out, closes the door. And poor June, thinking, oh yeah, I'll take the clothes in, I'll help mommy, wanders over, clambers up onto the step stool, reaches up to try and grab down the clothes, and tips over the edge of the balcony. Seiichi, none the wiser, is inside working on his new column piece, and when he's happy to wrap it up, heads out into the living room, and June is nowhere to be found. He looks around and glances at that open balcony door, and fearing the worst, runs over, peers over the edge, and sees the most heartbreaking thing a parent could ever see. We cut to the funeral for baby June and see that everyone is blaming Seiichi for what happened. He hears mourners at the wake talking about how he's a terrible father and that what happened is his fault. When he goes to Mika to try and find some solace and comfort from his partner, she says the exact same thing, that he killed their son. And her mother and father, his mom and dad-in-law, are exactly the same, if not worse. it becomes very clear that the father-in-law fucking hates Seiichi. So Seiichi goes to the father eventually and asks him to convince his daughter to divorce him. The father-in-law then decides, yeah, I'll do that. How much money though? How much money we're going to get out of you? Basically trying to bleed him dry for some kind of settlement, a divorce settlement or alimony, something like that. And Seiichi is at his wit's end. And that's when an idea forms. Instead of divorcing his wife, let's go on a beautiful, wonderful trip together. Rekindle the love of our marriage. He goes to tell his father-in-law that no, we will not be divorcing. We're heading away. Then produces a knife and murders the shit out of his mother and father-in-law. And heads directly from there to a payphone, calls Mika like, hey babe, you got your stuff packed? We're going right to the airport. And then heads straight to the airport and flies away from there. So everyone at home that Mika could have gone to is dead. We know now that from the very beginning, there was no other way this was going to end for Mika in Seiichi's mind. This guy is completely fucked in the head. And if there was any doubt about how fucked in the head he was before everything that just happened, now that he's wandering down to free this trapped woman, there's zero doubt left. He's beyond any kind of reasoning. He sets her free, and she, thankful, delighted that she can finally escape, surprises Seiichi. What do you mean, escape? You've got to stay here, with your husband and your son. And with Seiichi deciding to take the son and the trapped woman as his new family, the woman refusing to accept it, says he's no better than that monster who trapped her there. Seiichi, taking exception to that, raises up his machete and swings down. We never see what happens, but we do find out that everything that's been happening has taken place in the year 1989. So jumping forward back to the present, in 2010, we see a young couple not dissimilar to Mika and Seiichi, except they seem to, actually like each other, breaking down in the middle of the road, making their way along, finding Seiichi's manuscript. And we see that Seiichi's manuscript is not a plea for help, but a plea to get people to come to the cave. That they're Seiichi's family now. He's lonely, and he wants a family. The poor baby. And we get one last good look at him to see just how fucked up he looks, and we know exactly what's going to happen to the poor couple who've, against their own best interests, wandered into his cave. And that's where we're left, with a last look at him and his last message being, you're my family. And whether that's a note to the readers for taking part in this creepy little story, or if it is just meant for the people in the story itself, I don't know. What I do know is this has to be one of the most disturbing manga I've read. Like, I've read very disturbing on different levels, like Shinowadachi, Blood on the Tracks, the video I did about that one was particularly disturbing, but from a very different point of view. Whereas this one makes me feel the same way as movies like Barbarian. Movies, like a horror movie where there's, an inciting incident, like maybe, in Barbarian's case, that it seems like things are a little sketchy and maybe the house is unsafe. Spoilers for Barbarian. But then it turns out that there's actually something else living in the basement. And that's what they really need to be worried about. Just this two-tiered story of, oh my god, he wants to kill Mika, she's fleeing and running away. And now there's a creepy fucking old monster man from World War II. I like that kind of story where the initial fear is actually just a preface for something much worse. And like I said, it does not pull punches. It's only 9 chapters, so everything happens very quickly. It is breakneck. There's no pausing. And that also helps keep this idea of panic and fear in the reader. I couldn't imagine reading this chapter to chapter, as in by release, reading it and then waiting for the next chapter. All the feelings of panic would have left me by the time I came back around to reading it, whereas I could not tear myself away from my tablet trying to read this, because I was just, what happens next? What happens next? And it keeps you on the edge of your seat right until it boots you off altogether at the end, and then it's over. Now, over the last while, I've been looking for manga and anime that really kind of mess with me or kind of spook me in a certain way. I know there's, the standard is like Junji Ito, they're fucking perfect. Hideout slipped by me. I hadn't heard of it. I just came across it when I was looking up different manga. It's definitely in my top 20 horror manga now. Or even not just horror manga, but horror stories. It's so grounded in reality. It feels like a true crime story that just got twisted into some kind of Blumhouse script. And it's so good. But at this point, I'm just rambling on. And I could ramble on about it. I really, really like it. But that, much like where the story ends, is where this video ends. I'll be doing more soon. I've got a couple more in the pipeline that I think you're really going to enjoy. But if you did like the video, give it a like and let me know what the creepiest moment or the most disturbing moment in the manga was for you, or even just from what you saw in the video. There's plenty to pick from just from that. And if you have any recommendations for creepy or like horror manga or manhwa, webcomics, anything like that, let me know. I've got, like I said, some more in the pipeline that I think you're going to enjoy, but I'm always itching for more good stuff. So by all means, let me know and share it with anyone who you think might enjoy some horror manga. But just like a little one. Just like a little, no big commitment, little 9 chapters, chini chai tankobon. Delicious. Anyway, I'm going to go start editing this video and figuring out which one I want to do next. I'll see you all in the next video.